everybody, I'm Sabrina Salas-Matanani with your latest on containing COVID. According to the latest information from the Joint Information Center released around 9:30 last night, the number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 on Guam remains at 141 with 5 deaths and 128 recoveries. The pilot test for community COVID-19 testing on Guam was launched in Dededo on Saturday with the Department of Public Health's lab in Mooning testing 47 samples from 3 batches. Fortunately, no positive cases of coronavirus were reported in any of those batches. The first batch contained 14 samples, the second 17, and the third batch comprised of 16 samples from the Estumbo site and GovGuam's quarantine sites. All the samples across all 3 batches returned negative. Overall, 52 samples were collected at the Estumbo Gym pilot testing on Saturday. The Joint Information Center stated the results from the remainder of the samples will be tallied and reported sometime today. Speaker Tina Munoz-Barnes has closed her office following a staffer who presumably tested positive for COVID-19. The test was sent to Diagnostic Laboratory Services to Hawaii for confirmation. The Speaker's office was notified late Friday evening about the staffer. Over the past few weeks, only a limited number of essential staff had been working in the office while others were teleworking. The employee had been working from home, but this past week physically came to work on Tuesday and Wednesday. All employees who were in contact with the individual, including the Speaker, aim to get tested on Monday. Although the doors to the office have been closed, the Speaker and her staff will be working remotely to allow for decontamination and sanitization procedures. Senator Regine Biscoe-Lee, in the meantime, has written a letter to the governor urging her to dedicate at least 10% of the money Guam received recently from the CARES Act for direct aid to our unemployed and underemployed residents. Quote, "People are hurting because help hasn't arrived. Many can't afford to wait another day. Funding may have been the issue 2 weeks ago, but that certainly isn't the case now," end quote. Recently released guidance from the U.S. Treasury allows state and local governments to use CARES Act funds for necessary expenditures incurred due to the public health emergency if these expenditures provide economic support to those suffering from employment or business interruptions due to COVID-19 related business closures. The lawmaker suggests the governor could use some of the CARES Act funding for food delivery to residents, grants to small businesses, direct financial assistance to residents, and vouchers distributed to residents for food or other necessary items. Quote, "They need it now more than ever." Meanwhile, Republican Senator James Moylan is taking matters into his own hands and is hosting his first community virtual forum this Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 12:30 in the afternoon. The senator is hoping people will join the virtual forum to respond to constituents most asked questions and concerns. Some of the topics that will be covered include transparency, unemployment, relief, and assistance. The virtual forum will be done over Zoom. For more information, you're urged to check out his social media platforms or email his office at senatormoylan@guamlegislature.org. The remaining economic impact payments that the government of Guam is advancing will be mailed out, according to the Department of Revenue and Taxation. About 3,800 checks were transmitted to the Treasurer of Guam. A total of 7,005 checks were printed for a cumulative total of nearly $11 million. These checks are for those individuals who filed and had income of less than $10,000. Checks were distributed in batches to allow for Guam's financial institutions to remain compliant with social distancing protocols. The remaining EIP checks are still pending approval of DRT's implementation plan by the IRS. President Donald Trump signed a new law that replenishes the Paycheck protection program with $320 billion in additional funding. Before the PPP ran out of funding, 508 local businesses received about $102 million in loans as part of the initial program, while several local companies were left out because it ran out of money. Guam SBA advises local companies to continue to meet with their bankers and make sure their paperwork is complete because, again, it will be on a first-come, first-served basis. As for the latest on the USS Theodore Roosevelt, 100% of the crew have been tested, 833 sailors testing positive, a little over 4,000 negative, with a small number of results still pending. Of the total cases, 112 sailors have recovered, with over 4,200 moving ashore. There are now only 2 at Naval Hospital, with none in the ICU. It was announced earlier this week that sailors who are in quarantine hotels in Tumon will stay in quarantine for an additional week. The Navy confirming that more than 40 sailors Those who first tested negative have since tested positive. Meanwhile, national media report that the recommendation to give TR Captain Brett Crozier back his ship was made by the Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Michael Gilday, who had ordered an investigation into his ousting. His recommendation to reinstate Crozier, in effect, exonerates the captain for blasting out an email warning sailors would die if the Navy did not act faster to get them off the infected ship. Defense Secretary Mark Esper has not yet decided whether to accept the recommendation. Crozier remains in isolation here on Guam and must test negative for the virus before he can rejoin his ship. The very latest on containing COVID, make sure to check out all of our social media platforms. Again, everybody, we urge you to please practice social distancing, mask up, and stay home. Reporting for Guam's News Network, I'm Sabrina Salas Matanani.